Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Senturus webinar on getting acquainted with Incorta. And a quick overview of today's agenda. We'll do some quick introductions of our presenters. We'll cover some of the common challenges to accessing timely insights, provide an overview of Incorta's unified platform. We'll walk through a demo of the Incorta platform. And then we'll wrap up with an overview of Senturus. And as I said, we'll do some live Q&A at the end of today's session. In terms of today's presenters, we have Michael Weinhauer and Mazen Arar from Incorta as our primary presenters. Many of you may recognize Mike as a Senturus alum. He's been with Incorta for a number of months now. We were very sad to see him go, but he's doing great things over at Incorta. Mike is a senior sales engineer for Incorta, and among the things he did while he was at Senturus, he helped develop our Senturus Analytics connector, connecting to Tableau and Power BI and Cognos. Prior to Senturus, he had gained a ton of experience in the BI world at organizations including Oracle, IBM, and SAP. Mazen is the Director of Business Development at Incorta. Mazen has been with Incorta pretty much since the beginning. He's played a variety of roles there. He's currently Director of Business Development. And prior to Incorta, Mazen worked at Oracle for over 15 years. And from here, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Weinhauer. He's going to run a couple of polls and launch into today's presentation. So Mike, I'll let you take it away.
Appreciate it, and it's good to be back. You didn't introduce yourself though, buddy. Steve's the Director of Enterprise Architecture and Engineering, and has a seasoned analytics expert himself.
I'm here for bookends.
And thanks for having us on the webinar. So as we usually do in these webinars, which by the way will be recorded today, and it will get posted to the website along with the copy of the deck, a PDF of the deck, and any questions we're unable to get to at the end of the presentation. So you'll be able to refer to this later on. So we like to get a handle on the kind of the pulse of the audience, if you will. And the questions, we have two today. The first one is, what are your core systems of record in terms of ERP, CRM? And is it Oracle? Any flavor of that, right? On-prem, cloud, EBS. I would say you can even probably lump PeopleSoft and JDE in there. NetSuite, SAP, Salesforce, or something else. And you can check multiples there that apply. All right, we're at about 3/4 here. I'm gonna go ahead and close this out and share it back with you all. So the majority are Oracle, some flavor of that, and the other half are other. Interestingly, only 13% SAP and 13% Salesforce. I'm a little surprised at that Salesforce number being that low, but that is, as always, very interesting. And then our second poll are, what are some of the biggest challenges that you are experiencing in your existing analytics environment, right? And this is another one. There we go. Is it your time to insights, meaning you have these long ETL pipelines and IT backlogs for analytics? Is it difficulty responding to changes, new questions that come in, things like adding fields or changing fields, adding new data sources, things like that, answering new questions? Or is it an inability to get all the way up from your high-level KPIs, right? There's a big red blinking light on profit or deliveries or whatever, and you want to get all the way down to the granular level details, and you can't really do that. Or is it lack of self-service? Or is it something else there? I really wish we had the ability to have you type that in. Feel free, if you did say other on either of those, you can drop that in the question panel and it would actually be informative. So, okay, we've got about 3/4 in here and we're at about a minute. So I'm gonna close that out and share it back with you all. This is a little more evenly distributed. So, and this is not real surprising, that there's a high number of people that are struggling with 1, 2, and 4. There's a bunch on other. Again, I'm curious about that. And then, a significant but smaller percentage lacking that ability to kind of go from high-level KPIs to to the details. So thank you very much. Hopefully that was interesting and or informative for you. So the jumping into the presentation here, what we hear from our customers a lot of times is that the business and between LOB and IT are struggling to make data-driven decisions now, while the questions are relevant and being asked, and while the data is still current, right? There's a lot of latency. So there's a shocking number of, I forget what the percentages are, I should have dug those up before, but shocking number of business decisions that are made either from gut feel or from data that's days or weeks old. Do you struggle with, we hear that people are struggling to connect to all their data for a complete view, right? I like to use the phrase, there's a lot of data that gets sacrificed at the altar of performance because you have to aggregate and winnow it down through ETL just to get things to run. And then do you also see, or what we also see, are the need to reduce the burden of analytics on IT. You have those huge backlogs, right, as we saw in the poll responses, that there's a big backlog, and self-service is, I'd say, elusive, right, both from a cultural and a technical standpoint. And the reason for that is that what we see is, and this will resonate, I think, with all of you, nobody will be surprised by this, is the modern quote unquote data architecture, right, where you lose a bunch of data through this whole process. So when a new question is asked, a new business question is asked, the data gets sourced from your business sources, again, the Oracles, the Workdays, the SAPs, et cetera, and that gets pulled into usually a data lake at this point. And you might get close to 100% of that using your standard ETL tools, your 5-trans, Matillions, et cetera. But then to get that to the next level so it can perform, and you end up getting about 25% of that data down into your data warehouse, because you have another copy that's made, and then each functional business in the area oftentimes has their own chunk of the data warehouse. You have a finance data warehouse, an HR data warehouse, and then it has to be designed with its requirements ahead of time. So in that, you lose almost 75% of the detail we find, including the ability to trace that lineage or granular level security and things of that nature. Then it gets further aggregated for business consumption, typically into a star schema or a dimensional model, and it may be fractured into different data marts, cubes, things of that nature. And then you get down into things like Tableau extracts, Power BI imports, and whatnot before it's finally consumed by the end user in various tools. So after all that, you end up with data that lacks accuracy because you have multiple data copies and transformations, often hand-coded ones, and you lose a lot of timeliness. So our vision around this was, again, sort of looking at the traditional way of doing this, right? You have a question, you call IT, get on the list, grab the data, transform the data, prep the data, right? Kind of what we talked about on the prior slide. Each one of those arrows represents a lot of time. And so in Incorta, you looked at that and said, well, what if there's a way that we can do this where I have a question and all the data is already there and I can immediately go look at it? And that's really the problem that Incorta seeks to solve. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mazen, who's going to get into the value proposition of Incorta and what it brings to the table. Mazen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Just wanted to open the cam, say hello. Now it's taking a big chunk of the screen. Let me just turn it back off. And I loved the polls and the results on the poll, and I'm glad that I have some answers for those, but it's really interesting. But before we talk about Incorta's features and what I think what makes Incorta unique, let's talk about what is Incorta. I know some of you, I don't know if you guys have heard of Incorta before, but let's talk about what is Incorta. That's the first question that I always get. And next slide, please. And so Incorta is the shortest distance between data source and insight. And what I mean by that, let me explain a little bit. It's an end-to-end solution. It allows you to extract data from your business applications, different databases, data files, Google Sheets, etc., using Incorta's direct data mapping. So with the direct data mapping, we have over 30 connectors that allows you to connect to one data source or multiple data sources. In fact, this is one of our sweet spots where you can connect to one database that you have today, and then some maybe historical data on SAP and EBS together. You can connect to them at the same time, join them, and present them on the same dashboard. So that's a plus for us. Also, once you get the data, that you extract the data into Incorta, Incorta allows you to analyze this data at scale. We're talking millions and billions of rows. Then you can show it in a nice dashboard. We have a visualization tool that's part of the platform itself. If you want to use Incorta's visualization tool, but we also understand some customers, and this is from experience, they love their Tableau, they love their Power BI, they do not want to change that. You can absolutely have your tool of choice on top of Incorta. So once the data comes into Incorta, all the calculations are done and everything, and it's ready to be presented, you can have another tool on right on the top of that. Also, Incorta supports ML. I've worked with customers before, big customers, where they get all the data into Incorta and then they have their ML scripts on top of Incorta. So data scientists love us because we have the data prepared for them. You know, I've heard before that one of the hardest things for data scientists is getting the data in a place where they want it to be to run the ML scripts. So once the data is in Incorta, you get those scripts on and it's ready for you. We have customers today that are using it in production, as I said earlier. So Incorta offers basically, it's a one-stop shop with direct data mapping and in-memory technology. I forgot to mention that. So when the data comes into Incorta, we do use the in-memory technology for calculations and getting the data ready to be presented. So when you click on a dashboard or you try to drill down on a dashboard, you don't have to wait for 15 minutes. It opens up right away, like I said, using the in-memory technology on that front. So this is Incorta. Now, how is Incorta unique? And if you can build that for me, please. So obviously, performance and data agility, it's a big ask from the customers, and we think we nailed it in there. So rather than having to flatten, pre-aggregate, reshape, or model your data, Incorta is going to allow you to pool all the data for all the tables, record to record, schema for schema, directly into the Incorta platform. And also, you keep the same security rules. That means users can only see and access what they're allowed to see at the source itself. And this is a big question that always comes to us in terms of security. So that is definitely kept intact. Okay, so there it is. As I mentioned, with Incorta, it comes from the data source into Incorta. And of course, you can add additional data files if you want, like Excel spreadsheets, Google Sheets, whatever, and it's ready for analysis. So here we have, what we have here is all-in-one platform, 100% data ingest and 100% data analyzed. So today we see in some tools you have to add filters and parameters to have a smaller set of data because you're always worried about performance. You cannot possibly get all the data in. So in order to avoid poor performance, I've seen customers where they used to have lots of filters on their data. And that doesn't help much because in the future, if you want to add more to the dashboard, if you want to see more, you're going to have to come back and redo everything you've done, starting from the extraction down to the schema and so on. So with a direct data mapping, you get all your data in Incorta to be analyzed for the business. Okay, so this is one of our customers' favorite features. We did a survey before with our customer base, and number one was, aside from performance, which was in common with all of them, self-service capability. So traditionally today, if somebody wants to see a new column of data, or just add new insight to the dashboard, or just even simple modification, right? They have to call the IT team or whoever is taking care of that, ask for the new data. And from my experience, again, I've worked with some customers where they say, Mazen, it takes us a week and sometimes more. And sometimes they have to build a whole new schema just to accommodate this request. I've seen it with Incorta because you have all your data already there in Incorta. All what you do is, as you get the call, in fact, when I say self-service, we have super users that don't even need to call IT. They go themselves into the dashboard and they can see their data. It's all there, right? I can see it. Let me load it myself. Boom, it's there. So I've seen it where time shrinks from a week or more to a couple of hours or sometimes instant. So all what you need is just edit your dashboard and you're in. Another favorite feature, which is really time to value. So traditionally, to implement a BI solution, I would say it takes about 6 to 18 months. And when I present this slide and I say 6 to 18 months, I get pinged by people telling me you're being conservative. Sometimes implementing a BI project takes more than that. And obviously, with all these stages, all these steps back to back that you see there, it doesn't make it easy at all, right? So with Incorta, we've been averaging 4 to 7 weeks with the implementation projects. In fact, I've been involved in a project where from requirement gathering to going live, it took us literally 6 weeks. So that was a major hit for upper management, obviously, that the time and the cost was much less for the implementation. Thanks. So this slide, this is a customer, this slide was created by a customer. It was done on their internal presentation. We just asked for permission to grab the slide and not have a name on it. But definitely this is the initial planning for the customer. They had to build their ecosystem and the proposal they came up with was what you see where it says old way. That's like their proposal with the iteration and everything is going to be from 4 to 10 weeks. And of course, that would be very hard to swallow with upper management because it takes time, like I said. So with Incorta, they had the Incorta proposal, and this is done already. So they were able to eliminate a lot of those back-to-back steps and shrink the time down to 3 to 5 days. And that's a huge, like I said, taking it to the board. That was a big hit, and the customer is live on Incorta today. Another point I want to bring up, which is data integrity or trust in data, right? So Incorta maintains 100% of the data integrity. It eliminates the need for multiple data copies and transformations, which makes the data difficult to validate. I know we have lots of customers that like to run audits on Incorta, or probably on any BI tool they have in there. And sometimes it's hard when you do the transformations and multiple copies, it's hard to really validate what you're saying. But here we get all the data in and analytics is done on 100% of the data, which means any combination, whatever you do, you just have that one copy of data. So for auditing, it's clear customer can easily run an audit report on the data source and validate it in Incorta almost one-to-one. So I think that's a good feature in there. So we also offer data apps, or what we used to call blueprints, to accelerate implementation. So given the knowledge and experience at Incorta, we have lots of people that came from Oracle and SAP and other places. So by already knowing the source system, you get the complete schemas, the reports, dashboards, and that cuts down big time from weeks to months on the implementation time, if it's a big project, obviously. But it's we have customers that are fans of our blueprints or data apps, and let's see, we offer data apps for Oracle EBS, Oracle Cloud EPM, NetSuite, Salesforce, SAP, JD Edwards, and many more. This has already been a game changer for many implementation projects and for the customers themselves. So speaking of customers, obviously, I would like to show you here a sample of customers that trust Incorta with their data. And I have personally been working with them on like Apple, Facebook, Starbucks, Stanford University, Cisco. There's also Comcast, Netflix, and many more. This is just a small sample of our customer set today that trust us on their data. So with the end, I hope that you guys are anxious to see a demo of the product.
Thanks, Mazen. Really appreciate it. So all of you that are on the line watching this, if you're like me and you heard in the introduction that I've been doing this for, I'll just say 25 plus years to not date myself beyond that already huge number. And I've worked with just about every analytics tool out there, from Oracle to Business Objects to Cognos to MicroStrategy, Tableau, Power BI. And so, I'm very familiar with the quote unquote modern way and the old school ETL pipelines. And when I heard of Incorta, I was probably like you going, yeah, right. I'm not going to go revivalist preacher on you here at all, but I am asking you to kind of take a step back, and there's a bit of an evangelical leap, if you will, that I'm going to ask you to take here potentially. So hopefully you can see my screen here, and I'm in the Incorta environment now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through a quick demo of the product that shows how we can ingest a large amount of data from an ERP-like system and combine it with some other data around the weather to do a combined analysis of how the weather impacts sales, right? And so it's designed to show the scale, the ability to combine different data sources, and the ease with which I can pull all this data in and get from data to insights in a very short period of time with a nominal amount of effort. So the first place I start is everything is done here in the browser, and Incorta can reside. Generally, we're kind of a cloud-first company, but you can have this on-prem if you want. And you go to the page, and this is like a lot of tools where your various dashboards and whatnot, and those are going to come up and for me here. And I've got my KPIs, and then I've got my various charts and graphs, and I've got some pivot tables. It's really taking its sweet time. I think it's GoToMeeting is sucking up my bandwidth. So I've got a map, and I've got a bunch of information here. This is kind of the pulling the finished pie or turkey or whatever out of the oven, right? And you'll notice that in this dashboard, I've got about $8.2 billion in revenue. I've got 9 million orders, 266 distinct SKUs, over 20 million products, right? And you'll notice that when I go all the way down to the details here, I've got 9,065,000 individual transactions. And you'll notice that I'm able to query this information from top to bottom very easily. And if I click on this, it's automatically, you'll see when I build this, I don't have to build these filters in. It does it automatically. Automatically filters down by, say, New York, shows me the revenue, shows me my top level KPIs, all the way down to the 951,000 specific records that are germane to cities in New York. Right? I can navigate this extremely easily across a large set of data that is covering about 32 tables and 25 million records in my point-of-sale ERP database, and about 9 million records in a flat file. So now let's kind of go back, and I'm going to walk you through how we got there, right? And so you kind of got these 6 different tabs up here, and you start from the data pane. And as Mazen mentioned, we have some, it's actually about 250. It's an ever expanding library of connectors. We have a partnership with CData, and we also have our own connectors, which gives us a ton of accessibility, right? Whether it's a database, a data lake, data files, query services, you name it. You can, if there's a connection to be had to your data source, you can probably get to it with Incorta. And I just simply pick one of those. And what I'm going to use is I actually have a MySQL database here that has my online store. I'm just going to test that connection. And then my local data file here is my weather file. And it's a big old CSV file, about 10 gigabytes and about, I want to say, 9 million records of data. So once I've created that connection, the next step is to create a schema. And so everyone on this call, I'm sure you all know what schemas are. I've got a bunch of schemas in here, and I'll just show you this one for starters. It's just like a schema in a standard relational database, although you have a little more flexibility here. This might be multi-source, right? This includes some CSVs. I show you this EBS because this is actually from an Oracle system. It has 1 billion records in it. We're able to compress that down to 37 gigabytes on disk, and we loaded that in 6 minutes and 52 seconds. So that's the first thing, is we can really load data very quickly here. And since I don't want to spend 6 minutes and 52 seconds of your time here today, I'm just going to call this, I'm going to create one of my own here. And I'm going to pick the online store data source that I just tested out there. That's a little smaller, but still 25 million records. And I'm going to use our schema wizard, which is going to expose all of the tables in that. Again, this is kind of an OLTP. It's highly normalized setup. And from here, so Incorta's queried the metadata, and it pulls back all the columns and the data types, and it gets all the metadata information around that, and tries to tell you kind of what the roles are of those fields and whatnot. And then you can go ahead and change all this, right? You can pick and choose the ones that you want, the tables you want, the fields you want, rename them, change the types, do all kinds of stuff, even customize the SQL. But in the interest of time here, I'm just going to grab all of these. And the schema wizards is actually going to interpolate all those joins. If I choose the create joins, sorry, I forgot to disable my Slack here. Apologies for the pop-ups there. And so what Incorta is doing now is it's actually going and it's pulling in all that metadata, and it's going to create this schema for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and the next thing to do is to load that schema. So you can see here, I've got 32 tables and 33 joins. Now the difference is, here's a view of it, right? I can see all the relationships. It's detected all of those. The important difference here is what you would normally do now is this would go through a big ETL process, right? You would have to denormalize a lot of this. You would explode it in size because you flatten out things like all your product tables and your geos and all that stuff so that you can actually query it, right? Because even modern databases, you go beyond 2 or 3 joins and that query is going to churn. That's not the case with Incorta. We're actually going to, when I go and load this now, I'm going to make a straight up copy of every table in that source. And what we're also doing is a thing called direct data mapping that Mazen alluded to before. So it's low burden on the source system because we're just doing kind of a, select specific column names from the table. We're not doing any of the joins on that source system. We're just pulling that data straight over. And then, by the way, subsequently, we would probably do incremental loads. So we're only picking up the deltas and minimizing that impact. But the magic here is that Incorta is ingesting this very quickly. So you'll see this should load up in about a minute or so. But it's also going to store this in a very compact format, again, because it doesn't have to denormalize it, in Parquet files. And it's also doing direct data mapping. So the direct data mapping, the most expensive part of doing all these queries is figuring out those query paths. Oh, my browser just went away. Okay, sorry guys. Let me pull this back up here. And I'm just gonna go back in. The beauty of this is it's in the cloud, so it should still be churning away there when I get there. We'll pick up right where we left off. So I'm gonna go into my schema, back to my MKW online, and you can see here that has finished loading now. And it took 41 seconds to load 32 tables and 25 million records of data, right? So it's pulling this down really fast. And this is not a big box. This is, I want to say it's about, it's like 8 to 12 cores, and I want to say about 16 to 32 gigabytes of RAM. So it's not a giant box. And it's loaded all this stuff up, and I didn't have to do anything with it, and it's all joined up. And I can actually go in now, and if I wanted to, I could go ahead and explore the data from there and start building insights. But what I really want to do here is I need to join up my my weather data, right? So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go back out to my schema, and to save time, we've already loaded that file up. And just to show you I'm not lying to you, it loads in about 1 minute and 20 seconds, 74 million rows, and it's only about 1.4 gigs, right? And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to simply create a join where the weather is, whoops, I did that backwards. Where the, come on, Mike. Where the weather table is the table is the parent. I was doing this right, and I'm going to join it to my OLTP schema. Oh, geez, I am doing this wrong. Weather. No. Weather. And join it to. Let's see, I'm doing this wrong. My gosh. All right. Nope. Turn this up. Yeah, okay, so weather. Darn it. I don't know why I'm doing this wrong. Let's go back out to the schema to my OLTP schema, right? And I'm gonna actually go to my sales order header table. And I'm going to create the join here. Okay, and I'm gonna grab my sales order header. And I am going to pick my zip code. And I'm gonna join that to the to that weather file. Okay, and I need to join that actually on a couple different things, right? I need to join that on the zip code, and I need to join it on the date, because that file has weather by zip code over date, right? So you can imagine how that gets to 74 million. Okay, so once I've done that, that's all I need to do, right? Instead of me screwing that up like 18 times. Okay, and I say done. And so that's it. I don't have to do any kind of other ETL here. And you can see here's my schema, and here it's joined up to the weather flat file, and you can see the join criteria here, and I can just look at that. And from here, I could actually go ahead and just start exploring the data. So really, net of all my talking, if I just pulled this stuff in and did it, I could go and build insights from this in the space of about 5 minutes, right? But this is kind of a mess because you've got all these tables that are not friendly named, and there's a lot of them. So this might be a lot for your business users. Maybe this is something you use as a power user or something to sort of validate the data, or when they really want to get into it. But 100% of my data is here. Every single record from the top level all the way down to the most granular level detail is in here across both of those. So then what I do is I create what's called a business schema. Now the business schema, you can think of it as a view or just a friendly name for a view of your data, right? The traditional kind of, I would call it a star schema, right? So you want to say online store, and then what I would go through here is I would just pull in the columns that I want to bring in from that physical schema or schemas. In this case, my online store and my my weather file. So I'll give this just a second here, right? And then, so what I'm going to do to this is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a new view, and I can folder this. So if I wanted to, I could go ahead and I could go ahead and create folders for say products and time and stuff like that. But I'm just going to call this sales weather because in the interest of time. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull in my online store schema and the weather. And then from here, I can just go ahead and I can throw in, right, here's my where, here's my country region name, right? So here's all my geo information. And then maybe I want to throw in my customer ID, and I want to throw in, obviously I want my product information, I want my product ID, and I want my product category name. And I'm going to go all the way through all of these things and just narrow this down into just the information I want to expose to my users, right? Maybe now I want my max temperature from my weather file and my zip code. And so you can see I can go and change this, make this friendly. I can go ahead and I can add calculations as well. So if there's something that's not in my data, I can add these. I can do that at that physical schema level, but I can also do it here with a very handy formula builder that allows me to access all the fields and a whole set of formulas that give me, right, aggregate, Boolean functions, conditional statements, conversion, and pull various variables and stuff like that. So there's a very robust calculation engine here that you can leverage. So once I've created that, and I'm actually going to pull a Martha Stewart on you again here. I'm just going to jump out of this and not create it. And I'm going to use one that's already been finalized so you can see what this looks like, right? So in here, I've got a calculation that has my calculation that calculates my profit on the fly. It's got data from my weather, and then it has information from the online store, okay? And so now this, when I go explore data from that, this is a lot more manageable. Again, it would probably be even better if we broke it down into the all the various components. But now I can already start going ahead and building this visualization. So the tool is very straightforward. Again, browser-based. I just pull in the data set that I want to use. There's a wide array of visualization types, from your standard sort of tables to bar and line charts and maps and funnels, all the way down to things like KPIs and gauges. Plus, it's extensible through the use of an SDK. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull in, and I'm just going to build a little bit of this, right? So I'm going to do the revenue, and I'm going to do my order quantity, and then I'm going to pull in my product ID and my sales order number. So in this case, revenue, I want it to sum up, and maybe I want to change that to rounded. And then order quantity, I'm going to do the same thing. I still want to sum that, and I want that to be rounded. And then my product ID, that's my distinct SKU. So I'm actually going to change the label of that. And I'm going to do account distinct on that. And then my sales order numbers, I'm going to change that to account, and that's going to be rounded. And so you can start to see how this takes shape already, right? And I'm just going to call this, I'm not actually going to label this one because it's just KPIs, and I'm going to save this thing. And I'm going to call this my Senturus demo. And I'm going to put that in content. Okay, and it takes me into my insight. Now I'm going to add a couple more insights here just to show you kind of how this process works, right? So the next one, I'm going to go ahead and build a bubble map. And as you might expect, I'm going to put in my state information. There's a nice little search bar that gives me, sample data and shows me the column lineage and stuff like that. I'm going to throw that in here along with my revenue. And then I'm going to change the map type here to a state map. And just like that, I have my map, right? And so there's a whole bunch of formatting I can do here, right? I can do conditional formatting on things and do stuff like that. I'm just going to change this insight title and call it revenue by geo. Save that, and then save that out here. You can add tooltips to this and all kinds of stuff, right? And there I have that insight. So I can go ahead and keep adding insights to this, right? I'm going to add, in this case, I want to do a, I'll do a combo dual axis here, just to show you what this looks like. And I'm going to do my average temperature and my order quantity. All right. And what I can do here is change that, order quantity, and I get those. So I get my revenue and my order quantity as it pertains to temperature. right? And then I can change the colors of that and then add this to this visualization. I want to do one more here just to show you what this looks like, and I'm gonna do a crosstab. And the reason I want to show this one is because it's pretty computationally intensive, right? And this is something, again, we're operating on 25 million records and then 10 million records in the other one, 9 million sales orders and whatnot. So I'm going to put my month name in here. I'm going to put my product category and subcategory in the rows. And I'm going to grab, again, my friend's revenue and quantity. A little lag here. Great. And so you can see here that very quickly, that almost instantaneously populates it with all my information across all my product categories and subcategories. And I can add that to my visualization. And immediately, this visualization is dynamic from my high-level KPIs, from my map. Again, I'm selecting New York, drills down and narrows down all these records. There's nothing I have to do to bring all that information together, right? So I just continue adding visualizations to this, and then it's there for everyone to consume. Now, the last thing I'll show you is that I can actually share the access to this or schedule delivery. So if I want to share this with colleagues, they can create their own bookmark versions of it or whatever. I can deliver it to somebody, or I can schedule delivery of that. I can even embed these dashboards in other applications like Salesforce, for example. And over here, which is the you rarely. And faster time to insights with rapid incremental refreshes and the elimination of complex and fragile ETL or ELT processes. So we have some more links. If you're interested in learning more about Incorta, please head over to some of these links. Again, these will be in that PDF that we provide. We also encourage you to sign up for a free cloud instance. The link is in there. You can test drive it for free. It includes sample data, and you can try out those data apps that we talked about. We encourage you to go out to the community and sign up for an account there. It's a very rich and growing community. And we offer free education. There's some great free online self-paced courses, as well as instructor-led courses. So go take advantage of that. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve for the About Senturus section.
All right, thank you, Mike. And that was perfect timing for wrapping up your demo, because your audio was starting to fade in and out. So we missed just a tiny bit there at the end.
Sorry about that.
As I said, perfect timing. So thank you for the demo. Just a quick note here about how Senturus can help if you're interested in Incorta. No matter what your data sources or your existing BI infrastructure, we can help you facilitate seamless integration of Incorta into your existing environments. We can help you determine a phased implementation strategy. We can assist with the data source migration. We can integrate Incorta into your existing analytics environment. We can help you connect Incorta to Power BI, Tableau, and/or Cognos, all of which we have a great deal of experience with. And we can help you just generally with creation of dashboards and reports. So we're happy to talk to you if you're interested in exploring Incorta. Bit about additional resources that are available. If you visit senturus.com, we have a wealth of information. We've been in this business for a very long time and have slide decks from past webinars, tips and tricks, how-tos, blog posts. So I encourage you to visit senturus.com and take a look at the knowledge that we have there, which is freely shared. Quick overview of some upcoming events. We do continue to have a series of ongoing webinars. So if you're interested in joining us again in the weeks ahead, we have Introduction to the Azure Data Platform coming up on August 18th. Intro to Data Visualization with Python coming up at the beginning of September. And at the tail end of September, we'll be covering what's new in Cognos 11.2.3 for those of you who are Cognos shops. A little quick background on Senturus. We concentrate on BI modernizations and migrations across the entire BI stack. We provide a full spectrum of services, including training and consulting and implementation work. We're experts in Power BI, Cognos, and Tableau, and we particularly shine in assisting with hybrid environments. So we're happy to talk to you if you can use some assistance with your BI environments. We've been in business for over 20 years, inching up towards 1,500 clients, 3,000 plus projects. We've helped clients both large and small, and we'd be happy to help you out as well. We are currently hiring, so if you happen to be looking for a new opportunity, we're currently looking for an analytics and BI trainer, a senior Microsoft BI consultant, and a managing consultant. So if you are interested in any of those opportunities, please reach out to us at jobs@senturus.com. You can also find more information on our careers page on the Senturus website. And as promised, we're going to do some live Q&A here. There are a few questions I see in the question and answer panel. One of the questions was answered, and this might be a problem only for me because I'm on a Mac, but I can't actually see the full answer. So I don't know.
No, it's fine. I can actually see all the questions.
Cover that.
Yeah. And if for some reason my audio cuts out, then you guys can sort of jump in, Mazen, likewise with you.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say that just real quick, adding in on Senturus, having worked there for 7 years myself, and worked with them in some way, shape, or form for about 15, almost 20 years, I want to say. I'm really excited that they're an Incorta partner, because what they can really do is help you figure out where Incorta plugs into your environment. It's really a game changer for a lot of that operational agile reporting, closing the books, finance data hub, things of that nature. And you can figure out how to, if you're looking to migrate from Cognos or leverage Power BI and whatnot, they've got a lot of great expertise there and can really realize that for you and cut through the complexity. In terms of the questions, yeah, we got some good questions in here actually. So someone asked if Incorta is similar to AtScale, and we get a lot of that. It's certainly similar in one way, but it's really more of a semantic layer solution, and I think it does some query acceleration. But Incorta is really a comprehensive, as you saw, data platform, from ingestion to that schema creation to the business layer, the semantic layer, and the visualization and distribution. So we really have all of that in one platform. And that kind of segues nicely into, and if you do want to talk about that in greater detail, like how it compares to other platforms, I'd invite you to reach out to Senturus, reach out to us here at Incorta, and definitely go look at the Gartner report. We actually were in the 2 Gartner quadrants, one for query accelerators and as well as business analytics. So that's what's really interesting about Incorta. You won't find other companies that are in both of those. Did you have something you wanted to add, Mazen?
No. I thank you for bringing that up. I don't know how we both forgot about it, but yeah, just on that question, the short answer is no. They are semantic layer. We are a data platform, but also from what I know, they are a little different, and I know there are issues with scaling. So definitely, we are a data platform where scaling is a bigger thing for us. But yeah, thank you for bringing up the Gartner reports anyway.
Yeah, no sweat. And then someone asked about Power BI, and I don't have it on here right now in the interest of time. I'm not going to show it, but understand that, like Mazen said at the beginning, that there's a lot of everybody loves their Tableaus and their Power BIs and their Clicks and Excel, and we have connectivity to all of that. We use a SQLi layer. It's a Postgres connection that allows you to access all that information, the schemas and the business schemas. So we don't pry those tools out of your hands. We simply empower them with better data access, really.
Yeah.
The other question here is around, sorry, did you have something to add there, Mazen?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, if anybody wants to see a Power BI demo, definitely reach out to our friends at Senturus, and together we can arrange for a Power BI demo if you're interested in that. Just want to say that.
Great, thank you. And then, great question there, June. Thanks for asking this. ERPs are not exactly known for the good naming of their tables and fields. How do you handle generic code combination, segment one, et cetera? Yeah, and this is where the blueprints really help with these well-known systems, especially. So we have blueprints for Oracle EBS, for Oracle Cloud, for JD Edwards, for SAP, and so their table names are really incomprehensible and generally in German. And so we have all that sort of stuff, and that's really where that semantic layer is super important. So we pull in all the data with all those funky column names, and you can leave that as it is, but then we create business views that allow you to look at things from a business perspective, i.e. GL, AR, AP, things of that nature, right? So hopefully that answers your question. Definitely check out, if you're in our blueprints, or sorry, if you're in our cloud trial, you can even pull in a blueprint and see what it looks like. And we're always expanding that, and we're happy to talk to you about that. And again, that's something I think that Senturus can certainly help you with as well, and how that would fit into your environment potentially. Anything to add to that, Mazen?
No, I agree. I just want to say also, I mean, like you said, with the big named ERPs, definitely our connectors take care of that. We definitely recognize the namings and so on. So hopefully the connectors are taking care of it. But I've also worked with customers, big customers that actually have their own in-house built database, which is a little different. We were able to go around it where we have a quick mapping project. Once that is done, the rest is history. So hopefully connectors will take care of that issue.
Yeah, it's a good point. So the blueprints are not black boxes. You can really see what's in them, and they're fully extensible. So if there's a module or something that we haven't covered, custom fields that you have, we will recognize those. You can pull those in all the way down to the SQL level. And then, like I said, those 240 plus connectors. For example, I just created some connectivity to basically a REST API, and pulled in some data from this system called Wix that didn't have a specific connector for it, and I was able to do that in a pretty short amount of time. But June, you also did mention on your question here, do you do it in Incorta? Do you do that semantic layer in Incorta, or a separate semantic layer like Framework Manager in Cognos or Power BI data sets? The answer is, you could, but generally no. You would want to, because you want, if you do a semantic layer in Power BI and you pull an import or something, then you're sort of creating another copy of that data, and there are scalability issues there potentially, because like I showed you, that EBS had 1 billion records in it, and that's just that we don't even break a sweat at that level. When you start querying that sort of stuff and trying to pull that and having Power BI do that query instead of letting the Incorta engine do it, you could run into challenges. And I know for a fact Cognos will struggle with that mightily. So generally you want to do that in Incorta. And then,
yeah, Mike, one thing I wanted to note also, while we're speaking about Incorta and data sources and so on, and different applications, one feedback I always get from customers: when Incorta runs, the actual application or the database does not slow down. It does not affect the performance of the data source, wherever that is, because everything is done in Incorta itself. So that is something probably worth mentioning as well.
Yeah, all the things that Mazen talked about is, the rapid ingest, the direct data mapping into those nicely compressed Parquet files, and then the leveraging of in-memory analytics. So the combination of all those things makes Incorta super fast against large volumes of data, and that's very unique. And then the last question I see here is, can you do SCD2 with Incorta? So a type 2 slowly changing dimension. And that's actually a great question, because I mentioned we do the full loads, which are required initially, and then we do incremental loads to reduce the load on that source system. But we also allow you to do what we call snapshotting against the system, either dense or sparse. And the dense snapshots are kind of taking everything at a point in time, right, say daily. And the sparse ones are actually handling some of the just the incremental changes and using those snapshots with like a modified date, et cetera, current flag, things like that. You can implement a slowly changing dimension, a type 2 slowly changing dimension in Incorta.
Yep.
So there's a lot of flexibility there. That kind of falls in the same realm as it's similar to what we talk about when you're doing some of that machine learning and things like that. We use our Spark engine, and you can use Spark, Scala, R to do machine learning, to do complex transformations if you need to, do all that sort of stuff within Incorta. So hopefully that helps answer your question.
Yes, and we have customers actually that have snapshotting on to preserve historical data. Absolutely.
And Mike and Mazan, this is Scott. I also was under the understanding that your support for materialized views also provides options with SAD2s, correct?
It does. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep. So the materialized views give you this sort of infinite flexibility, and so if you want to know about more about that, again, that's something we can follow up with you. So if you, thanks everyone for your time today. That's the end of the questions. If you have other questions or you want to learn more, please go ahead and reach out to us. And thanks again to Senturus for having us on today. Oh, we have one quick question here. Rahul asked, does core store data? And it does. It pulls the data over, but just pulls one straight copy over, and then you can do incremental loads on top of that. So we do copy the data one time.
Yeah, and for everyone else, please guys, feel free to go to Incorta.com and get a demo instance to check it out. But definitely work with Senturus because they can guide you through the process.
Yep. So again, thanks to Senturus for having us on here, and Steve, I'll let you wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike and Mazen. Appreciate both of you being here today to share some of the details of Incorta with us. If you could just jump to the next slide, Mike, just so contact info is up there.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. No worries. Feel free to reach out to us either on the web, by phone, or by email. We're happy to talk to you. I think Scott Felton also dropped his numbers into the chat window. You can reach out to Scott anytime if you'd like to set up a demo of Incorta and talk about how Senturus could help you with an Incorta implementation. Thanks again to everybody for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you on a future Senturus webinar, and have a great day, everybody.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.